Hey everyone, as promised, just wanted to take a second to do a breakdown video on the short film that Jordan and I produced a few weeks ago. So I got Jordan here. Jordan was the cinematographer for that film, and he did all the filming, all the editing and post-production, and then I helped to write scripts, direct, and obviously act and hang out with my kids. So the four things that I want to cover, obviously, I feel like are, everybody's gonna wonder what kind of gear we use, what camera, lens, lighting. I want to dig more into the lighting as well, because that was obviously a big component of this, doing some outdoor shots, but then also doing some interior stuff as well. And then talk about the scripting and planning, and then there was a fourth one. Oh yeah, color grading and editing, because I feel like we got a lot of questions about that. Like, were we using like a Pro Mist or a Bloom filter, or was that in post? So I want to talk about that too. So let's jump into it and talk about the gear.
Number one.
So first and foremost, what camera were we using? We were using Jordan's Fujifilm X-H2S, right?
Something like that. There's a dash in there, but I don't know where.
X-H2S.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, good job. Yep.
And the Tokina 28 to 70.
Yeah.
Jordan, tell me, why is that a lens that you, just purchased, but we're looking at and pull the trigger on?
Yeah, this lens has a unique history. It's a design from Angino, which I think I'm saying that right. It's a French lens producer. They bought the design, and this is supposed to be the first edition from that. So it's technically like a 2.6 to 2.8 when you zoom to 70.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a vintage lens, but still has some modern qualities to it. Like the focus build feels great, but also has some like rainbow flare, which you kind of saw in some of that short film, which is great. Has a lot of vintage qualities as well as like a softness wide open. And that whole film that we shot, it was just completely wide open.
And then as far as what codec you were shooting at, shooting 6K, open gate.
Yeah, this lens or this camera has a really cool thing that's called open gate. Some cameras don't have it, like a lot of the Canon cameras don't have it.
We're shooting on it right now. C70.
Yeah, it's the aspect ratio is like this, whereas for an open gate, it's actually shooting like 3x2. So right. Yeah, 3 by 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a 6.2K, but realistically, when you deliver, you're not delivering in that. It's like 3,000-ish. But then shot in H.265, I think it's 360 megabytes per second. So not the internal ProRes that a lot of people shoot. I've just found that for some of the work that we do, if I'm not doing heavy color grading or low light, it saves a lot of space. I can use SD cards instead of the more expensive CF Express. Broke boy over here, so that's just the way I had to do it. Number two.
Right, second, we want to talk about lighting, because I feel like lighting is one of the most important things that we are in control of and can plan for and can set up for, and lighting is going to make your film that much better. So one of the pieces of this film was, obviously, I'd say like 75% or maybe 60% of the film was outdoors. So I was paying attention in pre-planning to what time did the light get really good for my house and the outdoor in the front yard and also in the backyard. And honestly, I think about 2 days prior to us shooting this, I just went outside and just observed, when the light was really good. We shot this in, I guess, the beginning of April.
Yeah.
So finally, with the time change, getting a lot longer golden hour. But I did notice that the light with the trees and everything was getting really good around 5:30 p.m. So that's when we started filming. So in different areas, it's gonna be better, obviously depending on like tree lines and objects and buildings that could be cutting your light. So for us, like the best really to get that nice golden hour, but also not too shadowy, was like right around 5:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. So that was for the outdoor shots. So if you're doing a short film or anything else and relying on natural light, you really need to pay attention to when the light is going to be best for the scenes that you're shooting, and that's what we did.
And if I could add to that, an app that's really helpful if you don't have access to your location, like Trent did because it was his house. Your address is, no, I'm just kidding. If you don't have access to the location that you're going to be shooting at, something that you can do is it's an app that's called Sun's Path, and it's like AR, alternate. It's not alternate reality.
Alternate reality.
That'd be cool. Augmented.
Yeah.
So basically you can just point to the sky and it'll tell you where the sun's going to be at certain times throughout the day. So you can kind of predict if it is going to be through trees, a little bit too low depending on the area that you're going to be in, like buildings, trees, all that. So yeah, that's something that you can use, and I've utilized many times before if you can't be there at that time for that location.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then for the indoor scene, we actually did use a powerful light to pump in through the door and kind of through the window on the right-hand side. And the reason for that is because the sun was kind of opposite of where the windows and the door were, and we really did want to have this nice like cast that kind of recreated more of like a morning light. We did want to try and maybe kind of separate the scenes a little bit to where it would feel like, you know, it could be like the ones that were outside were more in the afternoon like they were naturally, and then the ones indoors maybe felt like a little bit more like morning scenes. So we did use the Nanlite 720b. More powerful lights are going to be great.
Yeah.
You know, right? And that's what we discovered during our filmmaking journeys in our careers, is that the more powerful lights you can have access to, the more you can just do with them and really shape your scenes.
Right. And I mean, a really low budget way to do these kinds of things is to use the sun. I mean, that's what we all have access to. But when you don't have the time to just be able to plan for that, you have to be able to use powerful lights and have access to them. So luckily you can rent these things. You can rent these powerful lights, the RE M18, RE M40, but for us common folk, we can't buy or rent those, especially for a short film that was, I mean, we weren't paid for this, you know, we were just shooting it because we want to. Number 3.
All right, so number 3, going right along with light, is color. A lot of folks were wondering, were we using a Pro Mist or some sort of Cine Bloom filter on the lens? And actually,
no,
we were not. We were not using any filter. All of kind of the halation and maybe some bloom and all that stuff that you would see. Some of that is characteristics, some of the characteristics of the vintage lens, but all that, or the majority of that, was done with Dehancer in DaVinci, which is a pro plugin that you can add into DaVinci. So talk a little bit about that, Jordan, just the post-production and the color, because that's where you really kind of brought to life this nice, warm, intimate feel, which is what we were going for with obviously the script and just the message of the film.
Yeah, so to be honest, like I've used Pro Mist filters, Glimmer Glass, pretty much you name it, I've used it and I've tried it. But something with those lenses, you kind of get stuck with that look when you go into post and you don't really like it, or there's something that happens, maybe you get an extra flare because of internal reflections. That's something I was noticing with some of the lenses that I was using. So I just wanted a solution that I wanted the most control that I could possibly have in post.
That's a good point too, is like I've been fearful of using like a Pro Mist or a Cine Bloom sometimes, because like you said, is maybe you get back afterwards and you're like, oh, I don't want that, but now it's baked in to your look because you had a filter on there. And that's the cool thing about Dehancer, is that you can add this and add the degree and the amount to which you want it in post.
Right, yeah, something that Dehancer does, it does a lot of film emulation and print emulation, which is great. It gives your footage a look, and you can actually input what camera you use, what log profile you use, and it'll actually put it into Rec 709 and then spit out something for you depending on what formulas you use. But something that it has built in as well is halation and bloom, and that's really what we used through Dehancer to kind of control this look. You can create some wild looks with this, and you can kind of get the source limiter to give a feel as far as how much bloom you want or how much halation you want. That there's full customization in that. This is not an ad for Dehancer, but it is wonderful. It's definitely changed my mind as far as how I shoot. I definitely try to shoot more I try to build in the look versus with the lens and the camera that I'm shooting. But past that, it's really, okay, do we want a cooler look or do we want a bloomy, warm look, which we did like kind of throughout the whole film, honestly. And that was all done in post. I mean, I didn't shoot at a different white balance or anything like that. It's a flexible camera. Most of these cameras we shoot with these days are very flexible.
Log format and everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have warmth controls as well. You're able to push and pull the film emulation, which gives different characteristics. So really, I could spend all day talking about it, and you could spend all day being in there playing with it. It just takes time. I think I've probably used it for about 8 months now, and they're still coming out with new things that help, just with the highlights, the roll off, everything that film does well that these digital cameras don't. So yeah, that's really where the look came in. The lens has some softness, has some really cool, interesting bokeh around the edges, but everything else, and you can even do that in post. You can do that with distortion and stuff. But yeah, the bloom, the romantic vibe and look was really through Dehancer, honestly.
And while we're talking about post-production, I think there was another question that I did see. This isn't in regards to color, but in regards to sound. So if you were watching the film and you did hear a lot of kind of like natural sound, laughter of the kids, me reading a book to my daughter, or even the moment where I was like wiping away my son's tear, which was a legitimate tear.
Yeah.
We were actually having a true, authentic moment where he got hit by my daughter. And I think
It was not staged.
Yeah, not staged at all. And I was just talking to him, and so all that sound actually came from the hated DJI mic.
I didn't know. I didn't watch Trent's review of them before I
No,
bought
I'm
them.
kidding. The DJI mic is a great mic for a scenario. Honestly, a scenario is like this, because it does have the magnet on it, so you can easily just throw the magnet and the device on shirts or even on your pants. And that's what we did. Is I attached it to the bottom portion of my shirt, or even sometimes I attached it to my pocket, to where it would be out of the composition and out of the frame, but we were still able to capture natural sounds and then bring those obviously down in post, and just continue to build that sound bed and the sound design, which really added to the film. Because I think if you were to take away that natural sound, then I think the film would lose just a layer of depth, and a layer of intimacy and understanding of the characters. Just hearing, one of my most favorite things is just my son's laugh. And if you don't have that in a film like that, especially where we're focusing on kids and family and being a dad, if you don't hear those things, it takes away some depth there. And so that's what we did.
Pull it out. PT1.
Yeah, sound is something that I'm still learning so much about, obviously learning about cinematography as well, but that's something that I've neglected for a long, long time, and have not looked at how much production it really adds to your film. Like, I think a lot of people think of the film as like 90% is visual and 10% is like what you're hearing. I really think it's more 50-50 and maybe even more audio. But if like your weakest link of your film is really going to detract people. So I've really been working on trying to make that sound better. And I don't know if it's just the relationship with Trent, but it's just allowed me to think more about what kind of sound are we getting from what we're shooting, even if we're not going to use it. It's just good to have it. Where I just normally use internal mics, it was much better.
And internal mics are not bad.
Right,
Internal
they're
mics
not.
are not bad, but if you can be a little bit more intentional with placement of the microphone, that was a big thing, because there were times where Jordan may be several feet away from us, and I was right there, obviously holding my kids and right close to where, I was either sharing or speaking something to them or just hearing their laughter. So having a mic closer and a mic that is like a dedicated microphone versus a smaller mic on a camera is just going to get you better quality.
Number 4.
So number 4 is scripting and planning. So I came up with a script that was quite honestly longer than it needed to be in the beginning. And then I condensed that down, sent it to Jordan. Jordan had a few thoughts on it, gave me some feedback. I tweaked it a little bit more from there. And we had this nice tight script that both of us really felt like was a good script, a good voiceover for me to put in the video. And quite honestly, the script is a reflection of these thoughts and these reflections that I've had for the last 5 years of being a dad. And I really wanted to make sure that the message conveyed in this film was authentic and true to my experience as a dad. And so, when I scripted it, these were heartfelt words. These were words that, truthfully, I believe and feel, and a message that I wanted to communicate with other dads and maybe other mothers and just parents in general. And so that was a big part of the pre-production process. Because then once you have a script, then you can think about what scenes do we need to capture? What do we want to show based on that script?
The saying is that you rewrite a film usually 3 times. Like when you first write it, like before you even shoot, and then when you go shooting, that's the second time it gets rewritten, and then when you're in edit time, that's when it gets rewritten again. Actually, I believe that the beginning of this film was supposed to just be like Instagram type, like really short, like 18 seconds. Yeah, something like that. And so we created like a storyboard off of that. Like I found just stock video.
That's right. I forgot about the storyboard.
Yeah, just some storyboard stuff just to send to Trent. It's like, hey, along with the track that we were thinking, and then just put in like a really rough VO, like iPhone recorded VO, just to get an idea of the film, like of what kind of shots we needed, what was the emotion, the pacing, all that. And then when we showed up, we got those shots, but there was a lot of stuff that happened that, I mean, with kids, there's a lot of things that happened that we didn't plan for. Like the first shot was literally...
Yeah, literally my daughter like swung on the swings and hit my son, and he like started crying. And so I think I looked at you and I was like, start rolling, you know, because this is a true moment of being a dad. Like this happens multiple times a day where I have to get down and talk to them. And so, yeah, that moment of me like wiping his face, wiping a tear away was totally authentic.
He's not a great, Micah is a great actor, but not that great. He's learning.
Not yet.
He's learning, we just found out that we had a bunch of stuff that we captured that was like, we can create something much longer than this. And that's really what this Being There film became. It was just like, we have a lot more. Let's use the kind of the longer version that you first came up with. We did dial it back a little bit, but we expanded it much more than what it originally was. And it was much more ambient. It wasn't as fast paced, wasn't as fun, but it was more authentic, I think, being that. And honestly, we would have been kicking ourselves if we didn't make this longer version.
Yeah, I think in the beginning I was even like I made the script based on the 20-second music track that we thought we were going to use. Yeah. But I was kind of hoping in the back of my mind that we would lengthen it out a little bit. You know? Because I think once we filmed everything, I was like, man, I think there's plenty of content. And I think that's what you discovered in post too. It was like there was a lot of content there that we could work with. And I think it only expanded from like 20 seconds to like maybe 50 seconds or maybe 60 seconds.
Yeah, something like that,
But lengthening it out and giving the voiceover a little bit of room to breathe felt really nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, all that being said, go into a shoot with a plan, but be willing to scrap that plan. Or at least know your master shots that you definitely need to get, and let what's happening around you, especially in this kind of film with kids, you can't really control everything. Just shoot that and see what kind of comes with it. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we ended up using was not planned stuff. It was just shaky cam, but like flares were coming in and it just felt right, even though it wasn't technically right, which I guess is kind of parenting as well. Like it did kind of give that emotion of not perfect, but still, to the person who's viewing it or to the dad, it's still something that's worthwhile.
Cool. Those are the 4 buckets, the 4 areas of this short film that I wanted to. Those are the 4 areas that I wanted to just cover in the short film. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen the short film, click the link up here, down here. I don't know where it goes, up here. Click the link up here if you want to watch the short film. If you haven't seen it, Jordan did a phenomenal job with the cinematography and post-production. But also, it's just another great thing as to why working in teams is fun and useful, because somebody needs to kind of help direct and feel the vision, and then somebody can focus on capturing everything that needs to be captured. So collaboration is a good thing.
Yeah.
Jordan might say otherwise once we're
It's been good. It's been good, man.
It was okay.
I think we'll do another one.
So yeah, collaboration's fun. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, more short films, if you want to encourage us to create more short films, I don't think we need more encouragement, but yeah, if you want to encourage us some more, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on another video. Peace.